Hi, everyone. And for those of you who are staying in the hotel, you are the luckiest people on the planet. For those of you who are staying near the hotel within walking distance, again, luckiest people on the planet. For those of you who have been like me and Steve and drove in, thank you for staying safe. Thank you for taking it slow. Remember, physics doesn't care if you drive an SUV or a four-wheel drive. Physics will F with you one way or another. My name is T. I go by T Monster. I also go by Twitch Dad on Twitch. You can also find me on YouTube under Old Spirits Investigations. And I put together this panel because I wanted to introduce my friend Ash here to MAGFest. And this is the panel, Gaming Out of Your Comfort Zone. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take this one step at a time and show you some of the benefits of how we got from point A to point B, and we are going to make time, though, for Q&A. So before we go any further, I'd like for the panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Ash over here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ash. I stream on Twitch under Ash Said Hi. I also go as Ash Said Hi on pretty much every social media, so you can find me everywhere there. And I focus on retro gaming and Nintendo gaming, and I love connecting with people through the joy of video games, and I love video games and talking about them and video game music, so that's why I'm here, and I'm really excited to share this weekend with you all and talk about all the things that we love and, what it's like broadcasting and doing it for a living, so hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Saylor, a.k.a. Blind Gamer Steve on Twitch, and I'm an accessibility advocate and consultant in the video game industry. I've worked on a few games to be able to make their games more accessible to disabled players. I've worked on the Last of Us series. I worked on Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, some of the Ubisoft games, and then also currently I'm working on Call of Duty. Basically it kind of turned the streaming aspect into like an actual career in gaming, and so we'll definitely talk about the nuances of that in a minute. But I'm just happy to be here. I've been coming to MAGFest since 2013. And it still feels like it's 2013. Like, it has that same vibe. It has that same community vibe. I've loved MAGFest ever since coming here back then. It's for 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, and it's always been a blast. So, hi, everybody.
So I think we should start off this discussion with the obvious question in the room. What do you define as a comfort zone? Particularly when it comes to gaming, what do you define as a comfort zone, and what is your comfort zone when it comes to gaming? We'll start with Ash.
Because you know why I feel like I just really kind of discovered it and have been like feeling really good about this discovery is I'm a loot goblin. I love being a loot goblin. So what that means to me is, like, I played Morrowind a lot last year, and I love exploring and finding caves of treasure, even if it doesn't, like, progress the game in any kind of way. There's something very comforting about that, just surveying the land, opening up more of the map, and then the roulette of what's going to be in a treasure chest or a cave when you find it. And that discovery was also amplified by my recent discovery of Diablo 1. I'd never played it before, and that is the ultimate loot goblin game. It's like you're always opening up treasure chests, and each level is sort of randomized. It's sort of procedurally generated, not really, but kind of. And the discovery is what makes me feel a lot of joy in playing the game.
Oh, you would totally dig Diablo 4 in their seasons, because there's a lot of loot in that one.
Yeah.
And what about you, Steve? How would you what do you define as a comfort zone, and what is your comfort zone in gaming?
For me, my comfort zone had always been essentially games that like I could actually be able to play, because being a disabled player is very difficult to be able to find a game that I can actually dive in and play without feeling like that my disability is getting in the way. And so when it came to like trying to define my own comfort zone of it's not necessarily like it's not that I wasn't willing to try to be able to try different types of games that I normally wouldn't play. It was always like, okay, is there anything in there that would like I could actually be able to like physically play and do and accomplish and actually be able to beat the game. Like it is very like if you ask me a bunch of games from like the past few decades, there is 9 times out of 10 it's probably a game that I haven't even played, or even more rare is games I actually was able to finish and roll credits on. So that to me is always kind of bit like, but I'd say if there was like a particular type of game I play. I like that is totally my comfort zone is something that like sort of leans into like an IP that I actually like love. I loved growing up like the Star Trek and the Star Wars games. Like those to me were like I love them. I devoured pretty much every Star Trek game I can get my hands on, every Star Wars game I can get my hands on. And it was that's what kind of got me in, and that's what also led me into the career that I have. Because those IP games, it was the Matrix Online was the thing that got me into my career that I am today. And it was because, I'm a big fan of the Matrix. Matrix is my favorite movie of all time. I want to jump into this, and it basically turned into what I do today. So.
Yeah, I think sometimes comfort zone too is like playing games that you've played before. You know, like sometimes playing new games can be a little overwhelming because you're like, what if I forget something? What if I make a wrong decision and I can't go back? Or like sometimes playing a game that I already know, like Link to the Past, I've played it like a million jillion times.
Right.
I'll go back to that, and that'll be a comfort zone too.
I truly think comfort zones, particularly when you're deciding I want to stream a game or a particular experience, it comes into that confidence level about whether or not you feel comfortable sharing that experience with people. And I know that while I would define my comfort zone as being Destiny 2, I didn't stream Destiny Year 1 at all because I didn't even know how jump mechanics worked until I got into Destiny 2. And that sort of putting yourself out there is uncomfortable to begin with. So you have to have a certain level where you say, okay, I don't mind sharing this experience with a room full of strangers because I love this game that much. I think everybody has a soul game. A game that
Not a Souls game.
Not a Souls
soul
game. Not a Souls game. Not a Souls game. There's a difference.
Some people that might be their soul game, but it ain't my soul game.
We ain't kink shaming. If that's your thing,
Actually, my mom loves those games. She loves playing like Elden Ring. And
tell me more about your mom.
Like I called her the other day and she's like, "Oh, I'm just playing Elden Ring and Dark Souls." Like she
Just
Wow, your mom
casually.
is
I
badass.
play Dark Souls. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And like I'm not just talking about like she'll play it and then once it's done it's over. She's like, "Oh yeah, my character's like level 93," and I'm like, "Why?"
What?
Because
You got a badass mom.
It's the level grind.
and I just got to say as a quick aside, don't you love it when you find out stuff like this about your parents?
Yeah.
I found out, okay, I'm 55. I found out just recently that my mom said, yeah, when you had okay, they're going to date me. I had a ColecoVision. That was okay, for those younger in the audience, a ColecoVision came out in the 80s. But the ColecoVision, one of the games I had was Q*bert. I found out that my mom was very old school. She liked to make sure that her house was clean, so she would make everybody's beds and clean every room in the house. But she said, yeah, T, I had to save your room for last. And I said, why? And she said, well, I mean, I could easily clean the house in an hour, but it took me 4. Because I would go to your room, I'd then sit down, play Q*bert, and it would be 3 hours later. So I found out that my mom was master of the grind before I even experienced that.
It was actually like for my mom. So she's not a gamer at all to this day. But when we first got the Nintendo, as growing up as a kid, we found out. Like I didn't find out till as an adult that she beat Super Mario before my brother and I did. And I was like, "Wait, you? Like what? The game you play is Monopoly. What are you able to do as a platformer?"
But I do think that there is a comfort level with when you find it, you have that intimate relationship. And again, with me, it's Destiny. I don't know what it is about Destiny. I don't know if it's the wielding of space magic. I don't know if it's because I had this. I remember the first time as a warlock, I threw a supernova, not the Slova, but the original supernova, where it just came out and it split into 3 and then just wiped out everybody there. And I'm like, okay, I had the ads. They were right. I left them right there, and they're gone. And it felt astounding to me. And I feel like as Destiny has progressed, the storytelling has become a lot stronger. The performances, thank you so much, Lance Reddick. I mean, there really was a true magic to the game. And it never got old for me. And I hope that when I'm streaming, that joy, that love for the game comes through when I'm playing it. There's a very different tone for when I attempted a Souls-like game. I attempted the promo for Lies of P, and man, did that game break? Well, it broke my heart. It didn't break me. That was Dead Space. But we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, Lies of P broke my heart because I knew there was a great story there, and the visuals of Lies of P. I'm also known for writing steampunk, so Lies of P was right up my alley. I couldn't get past the first boss. And at one point, I did beat the boss, but we managed to hit each other at the same time. So I lost. And of course, being a Souls-like game, it said, no, you didn't beat the boss, T. You're going to have to start over. Thank you for playing. So yeah, I do think that we all have comfort zones, but I think the bigger question is, what was the first game where you strayed as far away from that comfort zone as possible? Oh, we're going to be turning it over to the audience in just a second. Don't worry. I'm asking the panelists first, but don't worry. We'll be getting to the audience in a moment.
Okay, Steve, you go first because I want to think about it.
Oh, a game that was completely out of my comfort zone. Actually, you know what? Believe it or not, and this is, I swear, this is not going to be a Destiny panel. But it really was, it was Destiny. So, like, T and we've been best friends, like, for 15 years at this point. And I was trying to find a game that I could be able to, like, a multiplayer game that I could jump in and play. Because I am not one to be, like, to jump into multiplayer games because it's harder as a disabled player to be able to jump into a team that you don't of players you don't know, and like you get the ones that are just like they don't care, they'll just like you go so far ahead and leave you behind, and or they'll just completely like backpack you throughout the entire thing and you don't accomplish much other than you were just there, and I find that very, very difficult. Or there's times where they would see like my gamer tag has like blind in the tag, so they'll see that and immediately just drop off because they're like, oh, I don't want to play with a disabled person. So it was hard for me to be able to find a game that I could jump in with friends. And so when I saw that T was playing Destiny, I was like, okay, I want to try that. I want to like, and I figured it could be fun content. We stream it together, and we did that. We called it Blind Leading the Blind because when we were trying to come up with a name for it, like then T was like, you know what, like, hey, I'm not that great at it either. It'll be like the Blind Leading the Blind. I'm like, that's what we're gonna call it. And so I've been playing Destiny ever since. Now I should say, everything has been going on with Bungie as of late. All the news of that, I do not condone at all. I've had some very dear friends who were laid off from recently, so we're not promoting Bungie in any way. They got to change a thing, and especially, hey, unions, we got to have that at this point. Too many layoffs in this industry. But as a game, I have enjoyed it, and that's what basically kind of what rekindled basically our friendship, because we basically were just, we're social media friends. We were friends, but we were like kept up with each other on social media, but it was Destiny that kind of like rekindled that friendship to the point where it's like, yeah, we've been best friends for ever since. So that was my comfort zone, getting out of my comfort zone.
So I guess what I'd like to know is, do you mean comfort zone like personally, like what games would make me uncomfortable, or like specifically for streaming?
Just no. Actually, maybe a little bit of both.
Okay, so
I mean, just to give you even more guidance in this is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a game that you streamed. It could just be a game that personally made you uncomfortable.
Okay.
And of course, if you wanted to share that experience, it makes you even more uncomfortable because now you're completely vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So a game that made me personally uncomfortable for both streaming and just personal reasons, two, Five Nights at Freddy's and Resident Evil 1.
Oh, and Resident Evil 1. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And the reason why is because I'm a big scaredy cat. I'm like, I get
Same.
Yeah, I get
Same.
Really bad nightmares very easily, and the tension in the music in Resident Evil 1 was unbearable, and I couldn't complete the game because I was like, I always felt like something was gonna creep up on my back, and I was like, oh, I just cannot deal with it. So that was tough, and Five Nights at Freddy's, like I literally had to force myself to play it, because it was like an incentive for charity, and I was like, okay, if I make this milestone, I'll play it for an hour, and that is the one time people clipped me like saying a curse word on stream, because
I gotta find this clip. I
keep my stream pretty like family friendly. I don't like really like to swear and stuff like that, and I was just like, nope, I'm out of here. Goodbye. I cannot.
So, these two know me and know what I do now on my stream. And for those of you who may have caught me on stream and you know what I do, you're going to be like, no, I don't buy that. But no, I am also a scaredy cat. I am terrified of horror movies. One of my other best friends, Phil Rossi, he enjoys rewatching horror films when I'm in with him so that he can watch me react. I don't even want to talk. Ever since The Conjuring, if someone goes, I freak out. I hate that. And so I don't do horror very well, which is why when my stream said, we really want to see you play The Last of Us, I really didn't want to go down that route. But I was like, you know what? I want to push myself. And the thing about, as Ash said, it's tough enough being a streamer. A lot of people think streaming is easy, but the thing is, you're constantly putting yourself out there. It's one of the reasons why it's so draining. But then when you make yourself this vulnerable, and for those of you who don't know, and those of you who didn't see the incredible HBO adaptation of The Last of Us, when that game opened, I remember saying to my stream in a very accusatory manner, what did you people get me into? And because all I could do was put my daughter in the moment of Joel. Okay? I mean, bam, I went straight to it. It's a thing about parenthood. I have had nightmares where I have been on the run with my kid for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but man, I do not handle that kind of horror well at all. So what I would do, and people started to notice it. I mean, I would be sitting in the press any key to start, press any button to start. And, you'd hear the harmonica of the Last of Us theme, and you'd see the open window with the drapes slowly blowing. And I'd be talking to everybody going, hey, how was your week, everybody? And after about half an hour, people in the stream would be like, when are you playing the game, T? When are you playing the game? I had to push myself, and of course, after I finished it, I'm like, well, I got to go play part 2. And I then began to discover that, yeah, horror games and I have a very love-hate, sometimes hate-hate relationship, and it does. I think it's that openness, that vulnerability.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my buddy Phil, as I said earlier, he wanted to push that even further. So in October during the pandemic, he said, there's this brand new game that's just dropped. Oh, no, it was actually September. There's this brand new game that's dropped. I'm going to play it in VR. You don't have to play it in VR, but we can play it together. I was like, okay, what's it called? It's called Phasmophobia.
Hey, I played that one time, and I was like,
I mean, like, nope.
no, thank you.
And Phil was playing it in VR. I've played it once in VR, and I nearly peed myself. And that was when somebody came up from behind me. I come around, and I'm like, ah! And, but Phil, and now keep in mind, this was September 2020. Nobody knew a thing about this game. Not a thing. Phil and I go in, it is Abbott and Costello go ghost hunting, okay? It was ridiculous. And then at one point, I'm going, my light is going out, my light is going out, and then we turn around and I hear this, and then something appears. I had to freeze frame it to see what it was later, but at the moment, I was screaming blue bloody murder, and my body was convulsing so hard, I was doing mouse and keyboard. So, of course, the stream is all over the place. Of course, the stream is laughing, Phil is running. And then I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, I'm in the upside down! So this is all the joys of being out of that comfort zone, but I'd like to expand on that. What are the benefits of gaming outside of your comfort zone? What do you feel like you, as a streamer, as a gamer, as an individual, how do you feel like you've grown from that?
Do you mind if I go first?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So I think specifically with streaming, when you go out of your comfort zone, I think there's a lot of stigma where if you stick to a certain category, that you have a hard time growing if you shift out of that category. Like, for example, people tend to stick to like one game, Valorant or Fortnite or whatever, and then they see a dip in numbers if they ever decide to switch categories. And I think that it's really important to understand that that's the nature of doing content. Like, it's going to shift. It's like if the TV show suddenly was like a horror show and then it suddenly became like a romance. Like, people are going to be like, what's going on? But I think that it's important for you to grow as a content creator to kind of test the waters and see what your audience likes and what maybe even you like, and see like how things vibe with you and your audience. So I feel like for me, like one example is I stream primarily retro games, but I started streaming Star Trek Online, and that's a really big shift. I mean, there are a lot of people in my community that love Star Trek, and we talk about the shows constantly, and I think that's how we bridge that connection. And I think that's another thing that's extremely important, is finding out how you can bridge those connections, because there are retro Star Trek games. Like, there's 25th Anniversary, I've been playing Star Trek, The Next Generation Final Unity, which is a point-and-click game. It's really fun. But when you find those ways to kind of bridge those connections, then you might find that people want to see things that they might not necessarily be interested in because you're excited about it. So I think that that's how it kind of helped me grow, is to not be afraid to try new things and to not judge myself if things don't go the way that they expect. Like, it's okay to do that. It's okay. Like, it's not a failure. I'm testing something out and seeing if this works. And however it goes, that's the journey of it, and appreciating that journey.
What about you, Steve?
For me, whenever it usually comes down to I actually do kind of like sharing me coming gaming out of my comfort zone, only because it's showing how it is I can actually be able to play a game. Like, I'm sort of not trying to just be like the accessibility guy in the panel, but it is something that I think is that's how I kind of got started. Like, I started. I've been on YouTube since like the year it launched, but as far as like my own content, I started making a series on my channel called Blind Gamer in 2015, and it was a way to basically to show my friends I suck at this. So it's more funny to watch me fail at this and I can laugh at myself because the fact that it's like, because I'm blind and I can't see the almost obvious things in a game that and it's sort of, it was always that was kind of like me getting out of my comfort zone, was that, okay, I don't normally play these types of games, but it could be fun looking at it from that angle, being like, well, let's see what comes of it. If I could at least try it and see what happens. And it was a way then, like, once I started kind of leaning into sort of advocating for accessibility, it started showing a way of essentially being able to, like, okay, this is how I'm able to play. It'd be better if I had this option or this sort of thing in the game that would make it a little bit more accessible to me. And by doing that, essentially, I started to become essentially kind of at least a little bit of, like, I don't like to use the term expert, but at least I had a general knowledge of what accessibility is needed into a game, where then developers started to kind of like see that, and what launched my basically my career that I have now was because I was gaming out of my comfort zone. I was trying out every type of game, like popular game that was coming out. And yeah, it's not exactly a game that I would sort of play on my personal like off hours, but it was a way for me to just, try out different things and at least showcase, okay, yeah, this is like, you're not going to get like Shroud level kind of content when you're watching me play games, but I can guarantee it's like, hey, either A, you're going to learn something, or B, have a good time regardless. And that to me is like those are the two things kind of like run any type of gaming content that I make.
When I first started streaming, like I was terrified of not making progress in a game. I thought that people would judge me for that and be like, "Oh, Ash, play the game already. Why do you suck at this? Like, come on."
That's a common fear I think a lot of people have when they're getting into content creation.
Yeah, but
absolutely.
People love this struggle, and I found that when you overcome the struggle, that makes it even like people connect with you even more. Like, oh my God, we gotta clip that. That was a moment. That was awesome. So.
See, it's funny because I don't see that so much when I play Destiny, but when I play Dead Space, oh my God, people are like, "We're hungry for screams, T. Give us screams." And I'm not putting it on. I am truly terrified in Dead Space, and I don't know what's worse, playing Dead Space and screaming my head off, or playing Dead Space and screaming at my cat who decides to jump on my keyboard at the time to completely take me out of the game. And, of course, I wind up hearing that, I'm like, cat, I'm going to turn you into a slipper.
Either way, it's great content.
It's fantastic content. But for myself, when it comes to gaming out of the comfort zone, I have to be completely frank. It can be life-changing. Mm-hmm. So, as I said earlier, it's a friend of mine, Phil. He calls me up. He says, there's a new game. It's called Phasmophobia. Let's play it. And it got us through the pandemic. Because once a week, I would get together with the group that we now call the Phil Rossi Scream Team. And we go in. Now granted, I'm the one that's providing the screams. In fact, there is a clip you can find on my Twitch and YouTube of me and Phil being trapped in the asylum. And we have a fourth person who's back at the truck, and he's saying, "You need to go 2 doors down the hallway and then take a left." It's straight out of Alien. He's going, "Take a left. No, the other way. And it's like, and then get in the room. Hunt. That kind of thing. It was easily 3.5 of the most terrifying minutes of my life. So we were at this for about a year. And we're coming out of the pandemic. It's 2021. It's the summer. We're still wearing masks. We're still being careful. But people are now starting to do stuff. And that was when Phil calls me up and says, "Got a question for you, T, and I want you to really think about this. Do you want to try this for real?" And I was like, "I beg your pardon?" He goes, "Do you want to go on a paranormal investigation?" And I said, "Do you have a place in mind?" He had the place in mind. He had the reservation. He had the room booked. All I had to do was say yes.
You got set up.
You got totally set up.
I got completely set up. And our first ever paranormal investigation, which I did attempt to stream, and it failed miserably. But then I learned, and I tried it again on the next one, and the next one. And now I stream paranormal investigations live on Twitch and YouTube under Old Spirits. We're getting ready to go into our 3rd season. And straight out of the game, I am on the 2nd floor of the old hospital on College Hill. I am by myself. I am filming myself. And my lights go out. And right as the lights go out, I hear the EMF reader on the other side of the corridor go, and I'm just like, fuck me.
The alien queen is coming.
And I remember saying on the stream, which I found out later had failed. I remember saying, so I have it on recording. I have it saying, if this is my last recording, damn it, those numbers had better be up there. Like and subscribe while you're here.
This is the last thing I do.
Yeah. I'm going down swinging, bitch.
But now that you mention like basically like how it kind of led into like what you're doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like I have specifically a direct correlation to that because again, I sort of streaming different types of games, and back in beginning of it was March of 2021. We're kind of still in that pandemic sort of time, so everyone was just trying to play games and play games together. So I reached out to a few of my friends who plays Call of Duty Zombies pretty religiously, at least during that time. And I was like, you know what? I've never played it before. I want to give it a try, and I figured ask my friends to come in, and teach me how to be able to play it. And I started playing it, and unprompted, like my friends, like they know that I'm, we're in accessibility and stuff, and they asked on stream, so Steve, what do you think of the accessibility of Call of Duty? And I legitimately said, I was trying to find the clip of it because I still have the VOD of the stream, but I couldn't find it specifically. But like I said specifically, Call of Duty is the least accessible franchise in video game history. And I went into, some like my specific, issues with the game and what I wish it could do, I wish they would be able to change. Little did I know at that exact moment there was a developer from Call of Duty in my stream watching it live, and they were like, "Really, mother ever? All right, why don't we let's see what we'll be able to do about that." And so they then messaged me afterwards and said, "Hey, we would like to be able to see what can you be able to do to be able to make Call of Duty more accessible. Would you like to be able to join our team?" And I was like, okay. And to the point now, I basically, it took about a year to kind of get going. I did a few things with them off and on, but now I am a longtime contractor with Raven Software, and I'm currently working on the accessibility of Call of Duty. And it was because of one stream where I said it's the least accessible. Like the thing you would not think that developers would be like, oh, that's just basically someone just being negative online. It's like, no, they're like, hey, let's see if we can be able to make it happen. And so it turned into a paying job just because of I was gaming out of my comfort zone, a game I never would have probably played, but I'm so glad I did, and it's led me to a lot of really cool opportunities. And so if you're wondering kind of what I'm working on, it's something that hasn't been announced yet. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I call this Canadian Black Ops. Whenever he can't, it's like, oh, you're on Black Ops. He's like, I'm on Black Ops, and I'm like, okay, all right, cool.
Well, can I share something about comfort zones that's not necessarily about gaming?
Sure.
Go.
So, I did a few shows on my Twitch channel where it was more interview and chatting based, and I always wanted to host. That's something that I've always wanted to do in my life. And I wrote a show, I basically wrote a show and did all these interview questions and did it with a few people that I knew very well and used that as kind of a demo reel for myself and used it to pitch myself to people to be able to be hey, I really want to host. Mm-hmm. And without Twitch, having that space to be able to do that, I wouldn't have been able to do things like what I did yesterday. I was at GDQ this whole week hosting there. And I think, if it weren't for having the platform and being able to test out, okay, let me stream video games here and then let me see what else is possible over here, that definitely took me out of my comfort zone. Yeah. I was terrified hosting live. And
that's and what makes it even more terrifying is you're sharing this experience live on the internet.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think that people don't give video games enough credit, or gaming in general, is when you do stray out of that comfort zone, you actually open up the door for other opportunities, whether it's real life paranormal investigation, whether it's working for COD or hosting events like GDQ. Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what happened recently on BBC. We were actually talking about it this morning, me and Steve, when they were reporting on the young kid who beat Tetris, and then they said now you can go outside and touch grass.
Oh, that was awful.
One, it stinks of amateur hour.
Yeah.
And if you're on the BBFC, I'm sorry, you're BBC News. You're better than this. And I'm sure she got called out for it. And of course she was like,
she got called out for it.
Oh, you know, and she probably did one of those non-apology apologies. I'm sorry my when words made you feel this way. Yeah, I bet. I can honestly say when people say, how did you get into paranormal investigation? I said, it all started with a video game. And they find that hysterical. But it's true. It has, and I as, being born and bred Southern Christian, pretty much so vanilla. You can find me in the ice cream section. I never saw myself in this circle at all, and I have video games to thank for that. But I also have straying out of the comfort zone to thank for that, and that's something that can really take you far in life, because without risk there is no reward. That's something I learned from Destiny. But I do think that that's something that all three of us benefit from, and we're hoping that if that's something that you feel good pushing yourself into, or if that's something you've been curious about, don't let something stop you. Because, it goes back to that classic line from Batman Begins, why do we fall down? So we can get up again.
Yeah. I always tell people, be friends with failure. It's nothing to be afraid of if you do something and then it doesn't work out. It's better to do it and then it didn't work out than regret not doing it.
Yeah.
That's why I always push myself. I email people all the time, what can I get into? What can I do? Even if this thing terrifies me, I'm going to do it. I was literally terrified on the stage the other day. But I was it's kind of weird. It was almost an outer body experience. I was well, I can't run away. I have to do it.
And it always goes by fast, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And then everybody is everything that you thought, that you tripped up on, I went back and watched the VOD and I was wait a minute, I did a really good job.
Yeah.
I did. And, I feel that's another thing with comfort zone is that you have to give yourself the grace of making the mistake and, celebrating when you didn't. Celebrate when you did do a really good job. And it's hard to do that because a lot of people get imposter syndrome and feel I'm not good enough for this. But the truth is, showing up is 90% of it.
Yeah. I'm going to borrow your phone real quick, and I'm just going to say, yep, okay. I wanted to go on ahead and open it up for questions, if everybody was cool with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
We're good with that? Okay. So yeah, if you got a question for us, yes, sir.
Sorry, I cheated with not a question.
All right.
Destiny,
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for joining us all. You
Just gonna
you
say
talk a
Warlock,
good game, but I tell
Warlock
you what,
jump, best jump, but all right.
I was going to
Go
say,
off.
without that triple jump, you guys are nothing. How are those exotics treating you? Huh? How are those exotics treating you? Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Whatever.
Does anybody have any legit questions for the panel? Yes, right
Hunters
here.
are cool. All right, I'll give you that.
About pushing yourself and taking risks, how do you feel out what's the risk you want to take and what's not going to be worth the effort it takes?
Ooh. So the question, so I'm just going to repeat the question. The question is, how do you assess a risk and figure out if it's worth taking or best avoided, correct? Yeah. So who wants to start that? Who wants to start with
I think in a sense, that's kind of like when we're talking about being friends with failure. You start to kind of realize, okay, these are things that don't work, and then you can be able to sort of weigh the pros. That's how you can figure out the pros and cons. Being okay, I don't really do well with this. I don't have the skill level for this. And if it's something that you can be able to see, okay, maybe it's a skill that I can learn, then it might be something that's worth taking that risk for. Everything I try to do, I try to be able to come up with a pro and cons list. Okay, what are the pros of being able to do this? What are the potential negatives or the risky sort of things that I would do? And then I just sort of weigh it out. It's okay, and then I figured, okay, if there's more pros than cons, then great. Okay, that might seem great. But even if there's sort of a balance of half and half or a little bit more riskier than pros, then I sort of okay, I put that down for a minute. I sort of let that kind of sort of percolate a bit, and then I come back to it and be okay, is this idea still worth the idea? That's when you can kind of also start to expand out into maybe some of your closest friends or family or found family of people that you trust to be able to give you that honest feedback. That being okay, what do you think of this? Because I actually have a group that I get together with, friends of mine that we've been doing this for 9 years. We've been getting together once a month, and we just sort of, we come from different backgrounds, and we sort of talk about, okay, this is the thing that we're trying to be able to do, and they pick it apart and figure out, okay, what is the actual nugget of the idea that we do, and then it's like once you kind of have, like, you start to kind of figure that out for yourself, and then if you still feel like, yeah, maybe this just might not be the thing for me, still keep that record of it, or still keep all, like, that idea, because you never know when that might spawn a different idea that actually might be better. So, like, even if the ideas you think might be terrible or it's too much of a risk, never get rid of those, because those ideas may come up and be molded into something that's even better. So when you're assessing that risk versus like pros and cons kind of level, you have to kind of like, and even still, you may think it's like, okay, this is not a really good idea, but it's something I still want to try. It's okay to do that, because again, if it fails, then you know what? You've got that experience, you know what works and what doesn't. But if it becomes a success, then it's something that's like, I am glad I took that risk. I am glad for myself that I took that risk of putting up YouTube videos of basically me failing a lot because of my disability. It literally turned into my entire career. I was working in radio before this. I was in radio for 10 plus years at that point. And it wasn't until I became in my mid-30s that I basically started getting into video games. So you never know when that kind of like that sort of opportunity can present itself and be the thing that, you know what, it's something that I'm glad I took that risk, and it's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I feel like people are afraid of like the sunk cost fallacy, like, you know, putting too much in. But I think if it brings you joy, that's when you continue. And if it doesn't bring you joy, that's when you stop.
Yeah.
You know, once it's like,
It's okay to stop, yeah.
It's totally okay. Yeah. Like, for example, I was afraid of playing Morrowind because a non-linear game just terrified me. I was like, I gotta find everything. I gotta 100% it. I gotta, like, do all the stuff. And then I found that the joy of the game was the journey. And then my community really loved seeing my reaction to it. And then I ended up playing it for 276 hours over the course of a year and a half. It became one of my favorite
Morrowind
things.
Mondays.
Morrowind
Mondays, yeah.
Yes, I am the narrator.
And the other thing too is that when you start failing, that's when you truly discover your passion. Because, like I said, the first time we attempted to stream a paranormal investigation live, it was an absolute failure. It really was. And the second time we did it, I found out very quickly, I need to figure out the lighting problem, because when you're streaming total darkness, that's not really compelling content. So again, second failure. It was on the third attempt, where we had the response device in front of me, and the light is basically pulsating in its neutral position. And my wife Pip is going, Jack, we know that you really must have been upset that your best friend Wesley was fighting for the Confederacy, fighting for against the people of Gettysburg. That must have been, I hate him. We all caught that live.
Yeah, no, I'm out.
That went live on stream. People lost their minds in chat, and somebody clipped it. And that was when I said, okay, we're on to something. And that has not happened once. It's happened 3 times on my stream. A voice that's not there, that's there. And
take me on one of these?
yes, because it's fun as hell. It's great time.
Nobody got time for that.
Oh, no.
No.
And here's the beautiful thing. Every time I pop into stream, I say, look, I know where I want to take you. Nope. Oh, come on, it'll be fun. Nope. Ash, I'll take care of you. Nope. And I'm like, oh, that's why Mr. Peel named that movie what he named it. I get it now. I get it. But the thing is, this is what Ash doesn't get. The places that I would take my friends,
Yeah.
Ash, and I'm taking Steve here as well, I don't take you to the asylum. I don't take you to the prison. That's being mean. That's hazing. I will take you to somewhere like, when we took Steve, we took him to the Jenny Wade house. Now, for those of you who don't know the history, the Gettysburg house, this particular house is where Jenny Wade, she's the only civilian casualty of Gettysburg. And that house is incredibly haunted. And when we took Steve there, we were trying out the FLIR for the first time. And sure enough, Steve says, I want to try something here because all of our devices, the response devices were going off. So something was around. So Steve held out his hand. And we had a FLIR on Steve. So you can see Steve, you can see the FLIR, you can see his hand. And he says, and then he said, guys, I think something's touching my hand. And we all looked at the FLIR and we saw two indentions, two small shadow figures literally standing right next to Steve. And it was not uncommon for the orphans from across the way to come over and play at the Jenny Wade house. And look, I'm not here to convince you whether the paranormal exists or not. If you don't believe in it, that's fine. That's cool. But when
I just took that as ghost kids like me, apparently. So.
Yeah, but they did Canadians. But for me, it's inviting you on the journey, and that has been an absolute joy. But we wouldn't have gotten to the point that we're at now if we didn't.
So you're saying I should step out of my comfort zone?
I think you should, and I'll take good care of you.
Bum.
And I mean, I will say this: there was another person who was giving me the hard note, Chelsea. She's
Chelsea
actually
bites,
emailed me and said, you know, next time I'm in Virginia, I'm like, talk to me, Hudson. But I do want to make it clear that, yeah, if you are getting into this, I'd be the first one to tell you, don't go to a prison, don't go into an asylum, don't do that first. Go somewhere chill.
Meet Casper the friendly ghost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's getting out of that comfort zone, and it's being able to constantly trip over yourself. You then realize, no, there's something here. I know I can do this. You'll know when to tap out. It's like playing a Souls game. You know when to tap out. You know when to tap out for good. Anybody? Any other questions we got? Yes, sir. Right here. How do you overcome so the question is, how do you overcome that anxiety of going in with friends and you're worried about disappointing them? That's a tough one.
It is tough, and I'll say even for myself, because like I said before, like it's hard for me to be able to get into multiplayer games. Because yeah, I know I'm not the greatest, but at these kind of games, or not even sometimes even that good, as I'm still trying to learn it. It is difficult, but the way I would suggest it is take it one step at a time. If you feel more comfortable being like, okay, I'll join you, but I don't want to be on comms. I'll listen, but I don't necessarily want to be on the on the microphone. That's fine. Like you can jump in and still be able to play and have fun while you're listening to your friends, like kind of like joining in, and then do that a couple of times until you feel a bit more comfortable, and then you can start opening up the mic a bit, and then it's like if you take it one step at a time, then the over like anxiety-driven task that you thought that it was going to be, you finally realize slowly over time you kind of were able to get to that comfort level, so that you can be able to enjoy your like gaming time with friends. And if there's even the streaming aspect of it, if you're worried about that too, you don't have to stream with your cam on. You don't have to stream with your mic on. You can just stream your gameplay. Like there is the ability to be able to do that on multiple platforms. Yeah, you may not be able to grow as a huge streamer like that, but that takes time anyway. So it's sort of, it's that one step at a time, whatever. And it is a risk. It is getting out of your comfort zone, as we've been talking about. But if you take it one step at a time, then that when you get to that point where it's like, I can't believe I didn't, like I wasn't sure I was able to do this, or I had so much anxiety about it, you start to realize, oh, okay, I can be able to do this. And then it's like moving on to then sort of the next thing you want to try. So it's hard. And it may not be in the end, it may not be for you, but it's about giving it a try, and you never know. It might open up to some of the best experiences that you ever had.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to say real quick too, and I'm going to be blunt. I hope you don't mind, but if you're worried that these people are not going to be cool with you, even if they're not friends. Okay, and just bottom line.
Yeah.
Bottom line, your friends are your champions, and if anything, they should be your biggest cheerleaders. And that brings me to another thing I'd recommend to you: find that one friend, confide in them, say, "I'm a little nervous about this," and that person is going to be he is going to be your biggest cheerleader. Case in point, one of my favorite memories from Destiny, period, involves Steve. We got Steve his very first seal, and for those of you who play Destiny, you get the seal and you get the pin. And we were looking, and I said, well, tell me some of the other stuff you got. And Steve's like, well, I'm 4 out of 10 for the Crucible seal. I was like, fuck no, we ain't going in the Crucible. And we're going down, and he goes, hey T, and I go, yeah, and he goes, I have 9 triumphs completed for Descendant. Descendant was the raid seal for the Deepstone Crypt. And that's one of the big raids. That's where you get 6 people together. And the toughest part of a raid is getting 6 schedules to mesh so that you can do the raid in particular. But that has always been my favorite raid. I love that raid. It's a beautiful raid. It's hella fun. And I said, okay, we're going to get you a raid seal. And Steve was like, what? And I said, no, we're going to get you a raid seal. And I lost my effing mind on that last run in the Deepstone Crypt. It was clan night, so we got everybody from current meta together, and we ran that, and it was, I think, the 5th or 6th attempt, and we got it. And I think I made a bigger. I went, let's effing go! I was louder about it than he was, but I'll never forget that moment, because I was like, we got you across the finish line, man. That's what friends do. They're not there to tear you down. They're there to build you up, and they're there to support you. So, yeah, if you feel like there's that one friend that you can confide in him. Let him know about this, and he'll work it out for you, man.
I also think that we know all of our own weak points, right? And it's easy to forget that. Like, you are the person that knows everything that you're worried about, and the outside world doesn't know those weak points that you know. So I feel like most of the time the things that I'm worrying about, like, other people are not worrying about them. And that's what I tell myself to get through those difficult, like, second-guessing moments. Like, I'm worrying about this, but that's because I'm the one looking in the mirror every day. Like, they're not seeing the same things that I'm seeing. And it takes a lot of practice to recognize that, and that's okay. But, if you remind yourself of that, then you'll get better at it a little bit every day.
Great question. Thank you. Anybody else? I think we got time for one more question. Does anybody else have a question for us? Yes, sir, right here.
So, like, I'm kind of opposite, where I don't, like, respect my comfort zones. Where, like, oh, I can play anything.
Right.
They're like, what? It's a comfort zone.
Yeah.
But it's, like, sometimes a bad thing, because it's, like, I put the mindset, like, oh, I can enjoy anything. But sometimes something's not for me,
Mhm.
So it's almost like I want to figure out a way to, like, know what I can go back to when I've gone too far off the path, right?
Right.
Sometimes the multiplayer thing, where it's just like, I'm not competitive in spirit, like, if it gets too salty, then it's like, okay, time to
Tap out. Yeah. So what's the question is, are you trying to find your comfort zone and see if there's something that makes you uncomfortable, or?
No, it's like, how do you, if you ever stray too far off the path, like, if you find something that doesn't work out, you have, like, a protocol, like, okay, this is my comfort game, I can go back to this, just like that.
So if you feel like you stray too far, it's like, well, do I have that security blanket? How, what and I think we got a similar question here, is like what are the requirements of a comfort game? Is it something that's nostalgic? Is it something that you're just really good at? Is it, and man, that's tricky.
I think it's just for me, it's like it's what is that game that made, like, that sort of the thing that came up on on Twitter not too long ago. It's like, what is that game that got you into gaming? It's what's that spark of being like, oh man, I love video games. Those are the kind of games that are your first sort of like group of like comfort games. Like that's the thing you can always go back to and be like, yeah, there was something there that made you like inspired. And when you kind of go off into that, it's like that no man's land of like, oh, like, okay, now I need to find my way back. That's where I usually start. Is that okay? And if it's not available anymore, like that's when I kind of like look for something that's similar, or I look up YouTube videos of that game, or there's obviously sites that can sometimes have that game available. I mean, for me, it was always the Matrix Online, and I can't necessarily play that anymore for obvious reasons. But it's finding that what is it that gave you that spark initially? Is like, I love video games. That's to me is like the sort of the first little bit of games I would look at.
For me, I think it's like brain off game. Like what do I play that's like brain off and I'm just like, enjoying the vibes, Yeah. Like, a lot of Zelda games are like that. Like Breath of the Wild is really like that for me.
I think for me it's the goofiest. I do think that is my comfort zone. Are the goofiest, silliest, and yet the most delightful, warm hug of games that you can play. One that comes to mind is Maneater, where you play a shark. And it is
not exactly a thing you would think of comfort
ridiculous.
game.
Oh, it is comforting because it's just plain stupid in every possible way, and yet you can't turn it off. I mean, it's done in the style of a reality TV show. Chris Purnell from Archer is the voiceover guy, and they've got so many delicious Easter eggs in there. But for me, I would say that I would define that comfort game, the warm blanket, is Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. They've just revamped it, and they've made it even better. Over the holidays, I busted ghosts wearing an ugly Christmas sweater and a kilt. And I felt unstoppable. And they are, it's just got a lot of...
He wasn't physically wearing an ugly Christmas sweater
No,
and a kilt.
I was in the game.
It was a game.
In the game. One of my favorite memories, again, it involves Steve, where... I kind of took advantage of Steve's disability, and Steve was coming.
Yeah, fuck you.
He was so. Fuck you. Steve was. I was playing the ghost, because that's the beautiful thing about Ghostbusters, is you can be a Ghostbuster or you can be a ghost. So picture the mechanics of, say, Dead by Daylight, but put it in the Ghostbusters universe and give it the same soundtrack, and that's what you have. And at one point, I was inside of a sign, and Steve is running by me with his PKE meter, and we're literally doing this around a post. He's on one side, I'm on the other. We trade, and then I hear this voice go, "For goddamn it, T, come on,"
Again, I say, fuck
I
you.
could not stop giggling. And at one point, my wife possessed a teddy bear. So she's like going with the teddy bear, and she's laughing hysterically, going, "I love this bear so much!" And it's one of those beautiful moments in gaming where you're just like, this is the most ridiculous thing I have done, and I'm a grown-ass adult. And it's very cathartic. It's release. You're releasing endorphins. You're feeling good about yourself. You're feeling good about gaming again, and that I think is a core requirement of any comfort game. Does it make you feel good about gaming? And that's my go-to is Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. Yeah, absolutely.
Is that 361?
Sorry?
No, it just came out recently.
Yeah, it's done by Ilphonic. It's
Yeah.
done by Ilphonic, and they've actually tied it in directly to the Ghostbusters films. When you watch Ghostbusters Afterlife, the end is the opening of Spirits Unleashed.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to see when Frozen Empire comes out. I'm like, we're going to get some tie-ins.
But that 360 game is actually really good.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
So I think that really wraps. We should just go ahead and wrap up. Just tell everybody where they can find you. Let's start with Steve and work our way down.
Yeah, you can find me, Steve Saylor. Saylor's Saylor. You can find me pretty much everywhere. Twitter. I'll never call it X. I'm on Threads, Instagram, YouTube, and I'm pretty much, Steve Saylor everywhere. Except for Twitch, I'm on Blind Gamer Steve on Twitch and also Blind Gamer Steve on TikTok as well. So, make sure to check it out. I do reviews for accessibility. I do content basically around accessibility, and it's a lot of fun. So, coming out.
My name is Ash, and you can find me everywhere at Ash Said Hi. That's Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, everywhere. You can find me everywhere, Ash Said Hi. Playing retro games or talking about video games or talking about video game music and just being excited about games.
As far as me, you can find me either at Team Monster on socials or The Team Monster on Twitch. And you can also find me on Old Spirits Investigations, where I will be taking Ash to the Wayside Inn of Middletown, Virginia. But
One
It's
day.
going to happen. Just let it happen.
One day.
but yes.
And so it begins.
You can find out more about what we do paranormal-wise on YouTube under Old Spirits Investigations. So please feel free to come on by and take a look at what we're doing there. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy MAGFest.
Thank you, everybody.